Everybody, welcome back with the Purplatypus is the name, and welcome to another Girls Frontline 2 video. Today we are talking about Miss Q here. I'm just going to call her Miss Q because I don't want to, every time I try to read the name, say something different. Everyone gets mad in the comments. Miss Q, it's obvious because she's so cute. Am I right, guys? Ooh, ooh. Anyway, yeah, why am I talking about this character today? So this character I wanted to talk about because I think she's probably the best single target damage dealer in the game. Also, she is a character that a lot of people re-rolled for, so a lot of people are going to have her comparatively to other legend units. People didn't have to, people re-rolled for Suomi, but you didn't really have to that much because you could guarantee her with like the pity because she has a banner. This character didn't have a banner, so you basically would have to re-roll in order to get her consistently. Or you know, to spend some money like I did and then get her. So yeah, we're just gonna go over basically what she does, what her kit is, the neural helixes that I recommend, the fortifications that are gonna be the best, the most important ones. Not that you can choose when you get them, but you know. And then we'll quickly go over her weapons, and then finally we'll wrap it up with a little bit of teams that I think and synergies within other units. So let's go into it. What does she do? She is a damage dealer with a side of damage. And then for dessert, that's right, she's going to dish out some damage. That's all she does. She has one job, and it is to dish out damage. How does she do it? She does follow-up attacks, basically. It's not called follow-up attacks here. It's called supports. What is the term? Action support. But basically, an ally is going to do a target attack, single target attack. She is then going to shoot after they attack. And she could do that multiple times per turn. Her damage is high. It's a pretty good percentage. And that's basically what her whole kit is going to be based around. Few notes about her follow-up attack before we get into the actual abilities is it will not trigger off abilities that do like AoE damage. Even if it's a single target where it's like you hit one target and it's AoE, that doesn't count as a targeted single attack. That counts as an AoE attack. So that will not trigger. Also, it will not trigger off of support abilities like support follow-up attacks, so like it doesn't self-trigger or anything like that, right? But an example is if I'm using this character who she does follow-up attacks when people use AoE attacks, right? So if I use it like a Lotta to do an AoE attack and then you follow up with your single target action support, that will not then trigger this character. The initial attack has to be single target. Also, in another example, Lotta, right, she gets to apply cold snap and then she follows up cold snap with an attack. That also does not trigger it. It just has to be a single target attack. Boom, that's how we go. So yeah, this is what she does here. Each time she deals damage, when they're not under protection of cover, you get 10% more damage, whatever. Sorry, she increases the damage when they're not in cover by 10%. She gains the 1 point of energy each time she deals damage in general, so she can generate quite a bit of energy every turn. And then when an enemy unit within range attacks, basically she gets to perform, and the range is like 8, by the way, it's pretty big. One instance of action support, 90% damage. This does 2 stability damage. She's not very good at stability breaking, but it's reasonable if they're weak to her bullet type, because that will basically bump it up to 4. It's still not incredible. Even if you do 4, 8, 12, there's still better ways to break it, but it's good. It can be triggered 3 times per turn. So this basically goes hand in hand with her ultimate here. Now, this is an ultimate I actually do not really like at level 1. I think it gets way better as you get fortifications. But right now, you need, I think, a very specific team in order to make this actually like pretty good. Because the issue is like you'd basically want to use it on your off turns, I feel like. But basically, if you're going to use it without the max energy, what does it do? You get 3 stacks of support boost 2, which is a 30% damage increase on your action support. And then you gain, if you're at max energy, you gain an additional stack of this and you get an additional action support. So it goes up to 4 attacks, basically. It's hard to take advantage of all 4 attacks when most of the combats are 4v4s, right? So you use one of your actions as her, so she's not triggering her own stuff. So with 3 characters, you need 4 single target attacks. There's not a lot of characters that can actually do that easily. There is a character we'll talk about that is very good at it, but for the most part, it's going to be difficult to consistently get these 4. So I'm not super interested in it at this time. And even the 3 stacks are doing 30% more damage. That's typically going to be just less than just attacking with one of your better abilities. Because this does consume your turn. This isn't like you get an extra action after using this. So this is I think it's kind of a weak-ish ability at level 1. However, we'll get into the fortifications, and it actually gets like way stronger and it becomes incredible. But I'm not super interested. She also uses it in auto all the time, and she's terrible in auto. As like a side note, for somehow this character is bad in auto because they insist on pressing the momentum after everyone has moved. So it's kind of weird, but I actually think her ultimate is one of her worst abilities right out the gate if you just pull her. But it has its uses. Guide to Victory. 8 tiles. You hit the first target for 110% damage, and you apply Overburn. Pretty good. We will talk about, again, there's a neural helix that changes that, but basically it's a pretty good way at a long range to deal some damage and to get some overburn. But again, range is already 8. Her effective range is already 8, so it's not like that much further range, but it is reasonable damage, and overburn is pretty strong because she is building all attack, and this does damage based on attack. And the neural helix makes it a real ability. This is probably her best ability. Her passive is her best part. Outside of her passive, this is going to be her best part. This is a 1 target within 8 tiles, deals burn damage equal to 150% of attack, and then you gain support boost 1. So you get 15% attack on your next action support. So you're going to do 150% attack right up, and then you get to use support boost 1 as well. So that's just going to be more total damage than her ultimate is on average. So you're probably going to want to use this when it's available. And then on your off turns, use one of these two, whatever you can. But this is going to be your top priority using ability most of the time, unless you can consistently get those 4 attacks, at which point that's great. So overall, you can tell by her kit, this is a character that is basically a single target damage dealer. There's a little bit of AoE she gets right here, but it's very, very minor. It's not very good. She is going to be best served she can do good against a bunch of little stuff, but at a point, AoE is just better because you can kill multiple of them with 1 action. She could just still almost guarantee one-shot a bunch of weak stuff, but where she really shines is going to be in these big boss encounters against low amounts of targets that have lots of HP, because no one quite dishes out damage just like she does at such a high, consistent rate. Maybe over the course of 1 turn, it's not the most damage possible in the game, although it might be. But over the course of 2 or 3 turns, it's just so much damage that never slows down. It's easily the best damage dealer. And she's not even a sniper. Like, maybe Nemesis could do more with like an all-in Nemesis with a 200% shot getting a crit or something, but I'm a little skeptical. So let's go over the neural helix. And so I'll show you the 3 that I recommend you get as you're leveling her up. However, this is going to be the first character I actually recommend getting all 6 nodes, because this will give her a 12% attack boost and HP and defense. But again, this is probably your highest attack character in the game, so this is actually going to be pretty good value. However, these resources are limited in some sense. They're not like, they basically are just like time gated, is my understanding. Even though you have a lot of them right now, you won't have a lot of them in the future. So I'm going to show you the 3 I recommend, but as you get resources, this is going to be a character you're likely going to want to unlock all of them. So in the first one here, I think it kind of is the good one, and then the niche one that's sometimes better. The good one here is just getting the 3 points of your index, your mana at the start of combat. Why? Because that brings you up to 6, and that instantly turns on your ultimate here. So now you are getting those 4 attacks. So if you actually have a team that cares about that, you could use this 2 turns in a row. You can basically maintain having this fully up all the time if you have a team that could actually do that. And get all those attacks. So it is a pretty darn good thing on her, especially because whenever she deals damage, remember, she gets some of her energy back. So if you spend 3 energy to get an extra attack and you use all 4 of those attacks, you actually would gain 4 energy, so you would have max energy the whole time. Pretty good to start that on turn 1. The other one here is before you attack, you remove a buff from the target. This is fine. PvE, I honestly haven't been that impressed with their buffs. And there's other ways to debuff. I just don't think that's really what she cares about. I think she just wants to get as much damage as possible. It is reasonable because it could activate multiple times, but maybe this is more of a PvP thing. This is one that I found more narrow, but I just haven't wanted to use it. Now here, these are actually the next 2 that I recommend. These ones are going to be neither the ones that I think are super good. But if you look here, they're both insane. While in support mode, which is her ultimate, right? I believe it's actually called support mode. whatever. I actually don't know how the terminology works here, but the ability is the same. While in support mode, applies defense down 2 to the target for 1 turn before an allied unit's attack. So she's sitting here doing nothing. Your ally is going to attack them, and she's going to follow up and hit them. But before that attacks, you apply the defense down 2. So now your ally gets full damage, or gets, you know, the bonus damage from the defense down, and you get the bonus damage from defense down. And if you're attacking 2 different targets, like let's say you attack and you kill this target, and you have another ally attack that one, that'll still, the defense down will apply to that one too. This isn't a once a turn thing. This will just keep reapplying. Very, very powerful ability. It's just free damage, and it's a lot of free damage too. That's 30% defense debuff. That's a lot of free damage. So I would absolutely take this, but I would also take this other one here. This is what I was alluding to earlier. It turns her guide victory from that ability that hits 8 tiles, it hits 1 target, and now hits all the targets in that entire line. The caveat is it'll hit one of them for the 110 max damage, and then the rest of them will hit for 30% less. However, it will apply overburn to all of them. So if you have a Sharkery on your team and you apply 3 overburn, and she suddenly starts mowing down all these characters, right? So very, very good ability as well. It just makes the ability better. And I honestly think that these 3 are just the 3 best. Now, if you come down to the last 2, they are good. However, when a phase weakness is exploited, using the active skill Common Rail gains 2 Blazing Assault 2 for 2 turns. Couple of issues with this. Getting Blazing Assault 2 is good, of course. But this is, you have to use Common Rail, and then you have to exploit a phase weakness. And then you get a buff, which is good, but other characters in your team, if you're building a team, are probably going to be able to do that. Other fire units have Blazing Assault synergies or ways to apply Blazing Assault. So I actually think that this is a little bit of a redundant node, and it wouldn't actually, for me, make the cut, even though it is good. If you don't have any way to apply Blazing Assault on your team, it's kind of weird, because if you can get a phase weakness, it means that they're probably weak to fire. Not always, but they're probably weak to fire. And then that means you might want to bring a different fire character that could also do it. So I don't particularly love this node, but it's not terrible. The other one here is when you're under the effect of support boost, gain immunity to displacement effects applied by enemy units. This seems more of like a PvP call in a sense. Maybe some bosses, hey buddy, you can't be knocked back, you can't be pushed forward, you can't be pulling out of cover. It's like reasonable, but like it's going to be so narrow when I actually want to use it that I'm probably not going to use it. However, I am going to get them all just for that 12% attack boost. And then when you do get them all, you are going to get a 5% crit rate. If you put this on her, this can go on any character. And then damage dealt outside of the unit's own turn is increased by 7%. I assume this will, because just who the character it's on. This implies to me it would be on the enemy turn by when I read it, but logically, because this character cares about follow-up attacking, as long as she's not actively being the one attacking, that this will increase the damage. So this will work with all of her stuff, I assume. So those are how I recommend going with the nodes. As far as the fortification goes, obviously the more you get, the better, right? But the big breaking points are 2, 3, and 5. So the biggest, most important one is 3, but 2 is good, 3 is good, and 5 is good. So 2 basically turns that guide to victory into, if they already have overburn, increases the critical rate of this attack by 100%. So you get a guaranteed crit, and that's just a bunch of free damage. And it could be a guaranteed AoE crit if multiple targets have overburn. Needing to have overburn is a little bit of a downer, but it's really not that hard to apply, if I'm being completely honest. Like, the more your team has ways to do it, it just becomes so much easier, especially with segment 3 here, which is a direct synergy to segment 2, but even better because it's just standalone good. After action support, apply overburn to the target for 2 turns. So now your ally attacks. Before they attack, you get the defense down 2. You attack, you apply the overburn with your passive after you deal the damage. And now if you use this, you get a guaranteed crit because now they have overburn. So overall, it's pretty good. And it just increases your attack support's damage by 10%. It's just like, that's actually huge. That's 10%, 3 to 4 times more a turn for 0 investment. Or I mean, you have to get segment 3, but you know what I mean, without ever having to do anything else on it. That's just a bunch of free damage. 4 is fine when they're not in cover. She has this whole like sub theme of when things aren't in cover, deal damage. It's in her passive too. It seems like fine when it happens, but I'm not planning for enemies to not be in cover most of the time. But I mean, when it turns on, it will. And then 6, we're gonna go back to 5, but increase damage by 10% against targets without cover protection. Again, that's like whatever, it's fine. But segment 5, this is what turns her ultimate kind of insane here. You use your ultimate, and then when you perform an action support, you apply damage up to self and the allied unit for 1 turn before the attack. So now this is how it works. Once you get to segment 5, you're sitting there doing nothing. You use your ultimate because you're in position to ready help your allies. You get the support 3, right? Or support whatever, the 30% bonus damage. Your ally goes to attack. Before they attack, they get damage up, you get damage up, the enemy gets defense down. They then attack, you then apply overburn, and then you end up getting extra energy from that at the end of it. And you still have 3 more, you can do that 3 more times. So this is kind of like absolutely nutso butso, but I think that it's possible that segment 3 is just better. Not that you get to choose an order, but if you do get her up to segment 3, that's when she really comes online and becomes probably untouchable. I think before then she's still probably untouchable, but it's going to be much more like reasonable overall. So that's the fortifications that are important, the neural helixes. As far as equipment, she has a signature weapon, right? Like, I don't really like talking about weapons in a game that has signature weapons for characters. And basically outside of that, you're just going to use like a frontline, basically like the bad version of her weapon, right? Anything that has like a thumbprint on it or whatever will be good. They're probably not going to recommend any of these because I have her weapon. I got it with exchanging currency, but it's a good weapon. 15% attack boost and a big flat attack. It gives her buffs if she has full HP. The buffs cause her to do more damage with her support attacks, yada yada blah blah. As far as the attachments, you just want just as much damage as possible. You could go for like a crit thing to get more crit damage and crit chance. I'm not super into that. I think just getting flat attack is probably better, unless there's like, because she doesn't have any like crit chance up, anything like that. She has the guaranteed crit, but that's not on her best ability. So I think you just kind of like don't even worry about that stuff. Just get as much damage as possible. And I would go with ballistic boost. Even though these first 2 abilities are both fire damage, her main bread and butter here is physical damage. So you're going to want to go there. So yeah, that's basically the character. So as far as units that are good with her, the first one is going to be a little bit less obvious. And then she kind of just has a lot of support in the sense that there's good fire units. But the number 1 unit that isn't like a normal support unit, I don't think people would immediately think of, is going to be Tololo. And that's because Tololo, like, again, these abilities don't really synergize, right? This is higher damage and exploits weaknesses, deals a little bit of damage, and then deals some damage. Like, this is all kind of cool stuff, but none of it like synergizes. But her ultimate here, her passive rather, is that at the start of the battle, you get maximum mana. And then after attacking, if you have maximum mana, which you do, you consume all of it and you gain a point of extra action. So this is a character that actually gets the ability to do 2 targeted single target attacks, that your character, that Q is going to be able to trigger off of both of them. So this is a way to actually get those 4 actions with a 4-man squad. So this is just a pretty good synergistic character. There's not a lot of ways to get extra actions in the game right now that I've seen. I mean, I'm sure there's like a couple ways, but like not really, not like in a real extra turn like what she gets. Like Lada has extra action, but it doesn't work in the same way because the AoE doesn't trigger her ability. So this is a pretty strong character to go with if you have her. They are just going to dish out a lot of damage. However, of course, if you don't have Tololo, another amazing option is Sharkery here. Sharkery is just much more synergistic, and other than the fact that they don't get the extra actions, but this character can apply overburn, she can apply overburn. When enemies have overburn, she could do, you know, blaze and assault too. You give them flammable. So this is like the best Q is like the best single target damage dealer in the game, and Sharkery is like the second best single target damage dealer in the game, and also she's way better at breaking shields. He's not going to do quite the damage output, probably not even half the damage output, honestly, but she does a lot of damage still. So absolutely a great character to have on the team, especially if you're going for bosses and they have any kind of fire weakness, or you just have like the ammo types where you're able to take advantage of it. So they work really good together. Of course, the overburn shit all works, and she'll follow up with the overburns. It's just all good. Actually, and this character cares more about the critical critical rates. Like this actually could be a character you want to build critical rate on for sure. So other than that, I think Kesnia is going to be a pretty good character for you here. So she has the action support, and then exactly right here, right? You could apply a Blazing Assault 2 to the allied units when they're going to attack. So this is a good way to get Blazing Assault on your characters, which that way you don't need to use your nil stuff on it, and it's just a lot of damage. Then she just has good stuff, right? Heat recovery is good, more Blazing Assault is good, more Blazing Assault is good, applying flammable is good. So again, just helps with breaking shields, helps with keeping everyone like basically topped off. She does have the ability to give everyone like health regen with the heat recovery, so she just kind of is the whole package for the team, which I think is pretty good. Outside of that, the other characters I would use is, I don't know if I would want to use any other characters. Like, I mean, you could make anyone work, right? You could use Nemesis in the team and it'll be fine. But I would probably use, an example team would be Q, Tololo, Sharkery, and then Kesnia. You can, of course, go with like a Cheetah. Cheetah is definitely pretty decent. It gives Blazing Assault, gives a bunch of buffs, and she has more of a healing thing. But you really want to be doing single target attacks, and this is like even though this one is a single target, I believe this one's like an AoE, so you don't, this one is never going to trigger your thing, which is a little awkward, whereas these ones I believe always do, although this one just heals, right? But you know, I mean, it really, it's more of a pick your favorite thing at that point. But yeah, that's the character. Let me just make sure we went over it. We went over their skills, their fortification, their neural helixes, their weapons, their teams. So I'm pretty sure that covers everything about this character that you could think about. So let's jump into a little bit of gameplay really quick. All right, so we're going up against a level 29 boss, so this shouldn't be very hard for us in general, but it should give us a little bit of look here. But also in my defense, my Tololo here is actually only level 30 with like a level 1 weapon. So we can take a look here. We are already in range of the boss because they're so big, and like, unfortunately, yeah, this might be a little bit too easy. But let's go ahead and we will use our, because we're at 6 energy, so we'll use this. We're going to be able to get 4 attacks. And then you have the, I don't want you to use this. I want you, we're just going to have you go, right? And then you're just going to use your normal attacks. We don't actually want you to deal any damage. And let's actually slow it down to ×1 for the gamers out there, so we could look at these animations. So I did 69 damage, nice. That did 1,322, and we're not even going through their shields. This is like not optimal, but we're not trying to like, so that was 1 attack from our character, right? And then Tololo gets to go again because that's her kit, basically. We're just using normal attacks here. And then we're gonna go there, and so now he's down to 16 shields. So we could probably just come up here and just hit with this, and that's just gonna kill him. Can we just not kill him? I don't even know if we have an option to not kill him here. You know, let's bring Cheetah up. That way we can try to get all 4 attacks off. Cheetah, you got no range, bro. There, even that kills him. All right. Well, I mean, what else are you gonna do? Might as well go out with a bang. All right, let's just turn this animation back up. I can't play with it this slow. I lied. Ooh woo. All right, well, we'll just do it. So you can see here, even though she didn't do a direct action, she got to attack twice off Tololo. She got to attack once off of the Sharkery, and then she would have been able to attack off this character as well, Cheetah, if we wanted her to do that. So, I mean, was that the greatest gameplay ever? No, but then you'll get an idea of what how the team works, right? That's the whole idea. If there were harder, I'm out of boss tickets, so I can't show you against the boss right now, but in a couple days I will be able to. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. Thank you very much. For Purplatypus. I'll see you on the flip-flops. Bye. On the rise, watch the views go.